meeting to order. This is the City of Frankfort Board of Commissioners special meeting. Today is May 15th, and it's 5 p.m. And I'll ask our clerk to call for the roll.
Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Unger,
Present.
Commissioner Waldred, Commissioner May,
Present.
Mayor Wilkerson.
Present. And we do have a quorum. We're going to get started for the fiscal year 2024 budget presentations. And first, since it is a special called meeting, we will stick to the agenda. And first we have the IT department, Bobby Rippey.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. Mine's pretty short and sweet. I think it's 4 pages total. We'll just get right to it. If you can see FY21, we're at 565.9. FY22, 675, and I think all of you were on the commission and you pretty much know the reason for that. We had an event that occurred that drove those costs up. 23, we added a layer of security to our infrastructure, so that drove it up a little bit. This year we're going to be down from that. The total expenditures, our request will be 618,220. We got 4 full-time staff with the current cost for staff at 408,508. The COLA for all 4 employees will be a total of $10,480. The operating expenditures will be our fiber connections, which come from the Frankfort Plant Board. They occupy the public safety building, and they bring our internet service in. They're the dark fiber connections between each department. C-Click Fix, which is our new app that we use citywide for reporting trouble, I guess, for all departments. Esri is our GIS software, and that's a third of the cost. We pay $16.5. Sewer pays a portion of that, and 911 pays a portion of that. G Suite is our email and our enterprise software through Google. Sophos is our EDR, MTR, that's our desktop, and our managed threat response, which is the network-wide security that we implemented after our incident. PC upgrades citywide will be $42,000. We added a little more to that because we were going to absorb the cost of some of the other departments who had that in their budget. We took it and put it in our budget, so we could we're making the call anyway, so we added it to our budget for that. Questions or concerns?
And these PC upgrades, they're every year?
They are. They're not just PC upgrades. They could be a Cisco switch. They could be one of our firewalls or something like that, but we added, it's all in the same category. It's direct from a vendor, so if something goes bad, we order it, and that's what we propose for next year.
Any other questions? All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
May I-
Mr. Thompson.
have myself marked president.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'll try to be quick, maybe not quite as quick as Bobby's. Public Works, for this upcoming fiscal year, we've got a proposed O&M budget of about $7.2 million. Public Works also manages the stormwater account and the municipal aid fund. So you can see those amounts there, and we'll talk briefly at the end about those 2 accounts. Most of this is going to focus on the O&M budget. So for the past few years, we've, the past 3 fiscal years, you can see we're pretty steady. I think the jump that you see between 21 and 22 is probably mostly related to staffing and solid waste. We used to budget about $50,000 a year for inmate help, and then right after COVID, we kind of lost the inmate help, and we had to budget more for more staffing. We used Crown temporary staffing, and then we converted to full-time staff. So that's kind of what that jump is there from 21 to 22. This is just our org chart. We've got 70 approved full-time positions, 2 part-time and 5 seasonals, and you can see on this org chart how they break down. director, deputy director, our admin staff includes, Chuck Knowles, who is our part-time project manager there, and then you can see all the rest, of those, how they break down. Personnel really is key for us. Our labor staff, our employees are our greatest asset. So 65% of our budget is personnel cost, including salaries, benefits, and overtime. And then you can again see here how that breaks down per division. For the administrative department, 448,000, COLA of 10,480. You can read, I'm not gonna read them all out loud to you, but the total personnel is 4.4 million, with the total COLA of 186 and total overtime estimated at 97,000. Some other budget highlights. What do we do with that remaining 35%? Waste disposal is a big part of that. That amount, 406,000, includes landfill disposal fees, recycling costs, our landfill that we maintain, the old landfill, Colin Jones property, as well as, there was one more thing, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, but all of our waste disposal costs kind of fall under there. It might have been carts that I'm forgetting. Maintenance and repairs, about 2% of our budget, and these numbers have been added for all the divisions of the department. These are sum totals. 3.7% heat, light, and power. Obviously, we don't have much control over that one. Keeping the lights on in all of our buildings at Rouse Avenue, Bald Knob, as well as the EOC, the IT building, and the Bridge Street building. Fuel, 5%. Materials, which is going to include any pipe, rock, concrete, lumber, any of those types of things that we use to do our projects in-house. 2.3% or 166.5. Road salt, that's a big line item, 200,000, and that has been reduced 50,000. Very weather dependent. This past year, we didn't have to use quite as much salt, so we were able to save a little bit there and reduce that line item. Street lighting, we pay for the electricity for all the street lights, as well as any new street lights that we put up. There's a fee for that. And then automotive parts, that's a very big item, particularly driven by the solid waste vehicles that require a lot of maintenance. So 4.3%. I think we add all that up, we're at about 95%. The remainder is printing, paper, just keeping office supplies and uniforms and things like that. We did have a few savings this past year that I wanted to highlight. Our maintenance garage has been able to take on a lot more vehicles and in-house projects. One of the big reasons for that is there's so many extended delays when we send vehicles out. We wanted to try to do as much in-house as we could to cut down on that downtime for, emergency response, in particular, fire trucks and ambulances, and of course our garbage trucks as well. So we've saved quite a bit there. We've been able to do a lot of projects over the past year in-house with our street department. 3 stormwater projects, as well as all the normal sidewalks and paving. Every time we're able to keep that in-house, it saves us a lot of money. We did we did a partnership on the Brighton Park Detention Basin. Helped save a little cost. I think the estimated cleanup of that detention basin was like $60,000, so we were able to cut that significantly. Bus stop shelter installation, another cost we didn't have to contract out. The street department helped with the downtown tree cutouts on our downtown master plan, or tree master plan, so that was a big help. Again, paving and sidewalks and all the events that we helped out with, the stage, no parking signs, barrels, cones, and message boards. So basically, anytime that we can help keep costs on us instead of going out, it really helps out. Our stormwater accounts, again, this one is, just, we run through all of our, any kind of grant or, loan that we have runs through this, account, as well as why you saw that first page, it's showing $2 million. But we're really just transferring $166,000 from the general fund into this account. And that's gonna cover our MS4 annual report that's required each year by the state, as well as a stormwater utility rate study, if that's approved by you all, when we bring it to you. And then, a Sutton property is a project that we've been working on. We've got some money in there for that. The others on here are grants and loans. The BRIC grant is gonna help us upgrade our Miro flood pump station and protect the South Frankfort and the Home Street area. It's a 50-year-old, I think 50 to 70-year-old pump station, so it's time for some upgrades. Riverview Park bank stabilization is partially funded by FEMA. I'm gonna bring that one to you again next week. We've got to discuss that and some additional costs that are associated with that project. The Franklin Mayor Willow area is a KIA loan, just rehabbing some pipes and catch basins in that area off of Home Street. And then the Willow Street Pump Station, another loan and a project we're sharing, kind of working together with the sewer department to get us a pump station in the Willow Street area to help keep that area dry, reduce some flooding. And finally, I've got the municipal aid account. This money comes from our gas tax, and it's a deposit each month. Roughly, it varies, but roughly about $40,000 to $50,000 a month, and about $500,000 a year is what that amounts to. We've got some extra funding in here where it accumulated for a few years prior to my time at Public Works, so that's why you'll see this is more than $500,000. But we've got currently street resurfacing at $250,000. Street utility repairs, that's another contract that we bring in fees to cover that cost fully. So the $300,000 is a pass-through cost. Sidewalks, $250,000. We've got some dump trucks on here from previous years. It's just taking so long to get trucks these days that these amounts are still budgeted in this account from previous years. And hopefully we will get those vehicles and spend that money this year. We've got some money in here for some repairs on Rouse Avenue. It's not gonna just be a resurfacing, it's gonna be a kind of a rebuilding of that road in sections. And then the Singing Bridge, that is actually funded by the state, passing through the municipal aid account, so that's on here too. And with that, I will take any questions, comments.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. The stormwater utility rate study, when was the last time we had one of those completed? Do you know?
2013, it was completed. So we wanted to update that. There's, some changes, a lot of things we can reuse, but some changes and updates to that.
The Sutton project off of Holmes, I know you said that we're 60 or 70 years in on that pump station, correct? So,
Yeah, the Miro.
the Miro,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes.
And so that, is there a particular area that particular pump station services? Is there a boundary that services?
Yeah.
within-
Sorry, I don't have a picture
It's
of the
it's
map,
okay.
but yeah, the flood wall there protects South Frankfort,
Okay.
and it also protects Home Street
Okay.
as well. The water can back up all the way through Home Street.
Okay. With regard to the street resurfacing and the street utility repairs, do we have projects set aside already for those particular funds?
We do. We have kind of a list, prioritization list for street resurfacing.
Okay.
and we can send that out. It's kind of, it fluctuates depending on if there's a big utility project that comes in, we'll switch out streets and things. We're also working on, collecting data now. We've just gotten, I think, 18 sensors on vehicles, so that we're collecting real-time data on street conditions.
Okay.
That'll help us prioritize and plan out the next few years rather than just kind of using our judgment as to what needs
Sure.
to be paved. And then the street utility repairs is, whenever somebody, a utility company, Plant Board, Columbia Gas, AT&T, Sewer Department included on that too. Whenever they cut into the streets, they pay a fee, and we set that aside and go back and pave the streets that were cut. So you've seen a big project down in South Frankfort, or I keep saying South Frankfort, meaning downtown.
Yeah.
North Frankfort, downtown area. So once that's complete, we'll use those fees collected from Columbia Gas to pave.
Okay. Has anything been done with the request for review of the equestrian way issue that I think had been?
Yeah, there was some requests that have come in for potholes and paving. We taken those requests and kind of prioritized them with everything else. I think in that area, Stephen Drive is in need of paving, and when we do that, we will probably tack on at least part of equestrian, if not the entire road. I think some parts are worse than others, but yes, Stephen and equestrian need to be done. I don't know for sure at this point if we've got it on this upcoming year or the following year, but I would have to look and let you know.
I think in addition to the paving that needs to be done on there, I think there was a request regarding potentially putting in some type of traffic mitigation
The speed
device.
control.
Because it's speed.
Yeah.
There's actually they've done a study that they included in that request, and I just wanted to know if
Yes,
anybody's looked at that.
I know what you're referring to now. Yes, they asked for a stop sign, or speed bumps. It was kind of two different people approached me. The letter you're referring to, I think, asked for speed bumps.
Yes. I just looked it up.
And really, the reason that we try to stay away from speed bumps is, number one, if we did it once, we would do it everywhere, because everybody wants speed bumps. But then they're just also a maintenance issue and an issue for fire trucks and emergency response vehicles. So we do try to stay away from speed bumps and use other measures when we can. I think one of the issues we're working through, and we do have a traffic committee that addresses these requests when they come in, we meet as needed, is how to do traffic calming without speed bumps. Whether it's narrowing the driving path, some paint to delineate spaces, like even a painted median can help kind of slow down traffic sometimes. Or maybe rumble strips. That's something we haven't done yet, but something we're looking at. But there are other ways besides the speed bumps, and that's what we need to decide going forward, is how are we going to do that? Because this is an issue on all through streets.
Oh, I agree.
Sunset, Ridgeview, Seminole, Hiawatha. I mean, there's tons of them that
I think-
are
I
issues.
think that's a whole other
So-
policy discussion we
Right.
should have at a future work session.
Okay,
'cause
yeah.
That's probably the number one,
Yeah, it
We'll
really
keep it
is.
to the budget on this one, but that can be part of it, as it relates to the expense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just worried that we're on notice now, because that study shows some pretty dangerous stats.
So has that been factored into this?
Yeah, most of those things we can do in-house, and they will be absorbed by this O&M budget
Okay.
with our street department. Yeah.
Commissioner Unger?
I had a quick question on the heat, light, and power. What were all the buildings that are included for?
We've got the buildings at Bald Knob, which include our transit center, garage, and street department, and then the solid waste building at Rouse Avenue. And then under our Division 64, which is our building maintenance, we include IT building, public safety building, and City Hall. Am I forgetting?
Okay.
Bridge Street, that's the other one, yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Just always thinking, you know, what buildings might need some work, that things could be more efficient. You know, are we trying to heat the whole big building at Rouse Avenue and we don't really need to? I mean, just, there's always little things I'm sure we
Right.
could look at.
Yeah, yep.
City manager.
Actually, when Commissioner Thompson was asking about resurfacing, which is true, we only do 250,000. And I think I remember that we actually really need to increase this because right now we're only repaving. We've got obviously a lot of streets, and I see the requests coming in about repaving or, you know, for potholes. And I think our last
Yeah.
contract came in over the amount that we budgeted. But how much, in my estimation, I think what you said we're resurfacing once every about
5 years.
every 50 years, once every 50 years instead of once every 20.
Instead of
25.
our goal would be to get it down closer to 20. Yeah, and it's expensive. It's a lot of money. But I think once we get a handle on this, and again, we're also, Alicia will talk about the capital budget later. We're also proposing some funds for an asset management plan for citywide as well as a capital plan. And that'll help us gauge how much money do we need to commit to this to get to that goal of every 20 to 25 years instead of once every 50 years. But yeah, you can assume it's going to be doubled at least, so 500,000
That we really,
that we really need to
budget
keep
for.
up to where we need to be, yeah.
And how much of that street repaving, that mutual aid, 250,000 is passed through that comes from the state?
All of that comes in from the state. That municipal aid account is fully funded by the state.
So why don't we do more?
It's just limited. We only
We're-
bring
we're-
in about 500,000 a year.
Okay, so that's what we're limited to.
That's
We're
what-
asking,
that's
I guess
what's
that's my
limited.
question. We're
Yes,
getting
sir.
as much as we can get.
Yeah, we're maxing it out. I think, like I said, the account did have a balance when I started at Public Works, and I'm not sure why or if there was something in particular that it was being saved for, but we've been spending that. We did actually $1 million worth of paving the first year that I was here and made a big dent in things, but we can't keep that up every year. So we'll keep chipping away at it.
My regard, I guess, is into Home Street. How much money are we putting forth, or are we getting for Home Street to get that project started? And
The
what,
planning study, I believe, was a total of around 700. I can't remember what our share was. Was it a
606,000.
80-20 or a?
And then we had 100 and something for a match.
And, and
Yeah.
just so you know, Home Street is not part of municipal aid. Home Street is its own separate capital projects type account. And I wanna say it was 717,000, and, we had a 20%
I was
match,
thinking
I
it was
believe.
80-20.
Yeah, so we didn't have a huge amount, and, the state, or where it's coming from, my
Federal.
federal
Yeah.
pass through the state. Yeah, so but that's in a totally separate fund.
so what is our portion?
I think it's 20%.
20% of that,
I'd
okay.
have to, I can double check that in the morning and let y'all know, but I believe it was a 20% city match, which is not part of any of this, so.
Right, I understand we were talking
Yeah.
about streets, and I want to know what
Yeah.
that fund is, because if they're funding, that's money that's coming out of something that we need to maybe think about getting money for the state, because it is a federal pass-through.
So, just so you know, the Holmes Street money has already been moved over. It was moved over in this fiscal year 23 budget, so
Yeah.
that's all already done. For that engineering study, that's the first thing. So that's already been budgeted and moved over. And then, as a matter of fact, I think Chuck is turning in reimbursements as we speak.
Okay.
So we're already in the process of doing that. We've already set that account up, set that fund up, and moved the money over, so it doesn't really impact fiscal year 24.
Okay, but it's already
that-
starting the reimbursement
Yes,
part of that.
Commissioner,
Yes, because I just want to
Yep.
hold the state, that's not our road, you know,
Yeah.
and I want to make sure
Right.
anything that we have going out, we have coming back in, or that we add that to any other ask moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm about numbers and budget. I don't really care about municipal or streets. I'm about money.
But yeah, that's already been.
That's what I know.
handled.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
just to add to that, next step would be that we would apply for construction dollars at the federal level, Commissioner Waldridge. So, and then work with the state. We have asked the state to try to do something to Home Street to make it a little bit better. They haven't, but we keep asking because it is such a bumpy ride.
Yes, it is, and it's tearing up cars, and it's ridiculous that that's a corridor that leads right beside transportation of all places, and they continue to look over it as though people don't drive that every day. So, okay, I won't get veer off. That could be another day, but I care about the numbers.
And one final question, so I noticed that it looks like the street lighting went down, the expense went from 270 down to 220 or so in fiscal year 22. Is that because of the
Yeah.
new lights?
Yeah, so we, the plant board has exchanged, a lot of the lights for LEDs, and so we are seeing a little bit of a savings.
So that's-
And, as they go through, as lights go out, they'll continue to replace with LEDs, so we're
we
hoping to
should
see
expect
even
a
more savings there.
Permanent reduction on those expenses because of that.
I hope so, yes.
Any other discussion or questions for our Public Works Director? Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next. Chief Dusty Bowman, E911. We have you for a couple minutes.
Which one of those?
Sir. Good evening, everyone. So I'll talk about the E911 dispatch center first. I do want to let y'all know that a little bit of pain. Me and my gallbladder have scheduled a breakup on Wednesday, and it's reminded me tonight just how much control it's got. So I apologize if I am short. We'll talk about the comparisons, the cost, the requested costs we're looking at. You'll see here for 2021, we through 22, through 23, and even now, we've had to ask for increases because we've had increases in costs with repairs and different things. You all are aware of that. We've taken a heck of a fight trying to get extra funds for the E911 fund to help us out in those, repairing those costs. The one thing I did want to show you is each year we do find ways of coming under budget. So we find our best ways, we negotiate with the contractors and stuff that we work with to get the best cost for what we're doing. For this budget year, we are budgeting for 18 full-time dispatchers and 3 part-time dispatchers. We are currently looking at 2 vacant positions tonight. As of tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. will only be 1 vacant, and we have another that is in the process and one of the last stages. So hopefully here in the next month, we'll be full staffed in the dispatch center. You see our current costs at a little over 1.2 million. The 1 vacancy that we've averaged is about 49,600. COLA at 50,184, and those fringe benefits are included in those amounts. So some of our requested costs, we do like to keep the heat, light, and power on. So that's a minimum 5,500. Our postage and printing. The printing you'll see on there in today's world of trying to be as green as possible, but we are required by certain state and federal laws to keep paper documents for missing persons, to keep files for stolen vehicles and stuff that we are required to check not only by computer but also in person. So that's why that's on there. Our clothing, you see the other supplies and other services, that's because we actually are required to maintain our own. We clean our own dispatch center. It's not done by the janitorial service because there's certain restrictions and requirements to be able to be in there. You'll see $3,450 for the equipment, hardware, computer software and stuff, $20,000. And that is just, at any point we have any issues inside, we have those funds available to replace something immediately, because that's one part we don't want losing. So some of the bigger spending we do is with the maintenance and repairs. As you see, we've requested $69,000. A big portion of that is trying to reestablish our maintenance and repair contract with Southern Communications. I know a few years back that was canceled. There was, I guess, some miscommunication through other directors. However, with this, we have found that because of that lack of having people doing monthly checks and doing regular checkups, we have ended up paying more in expenses and stuff that well exceed what we're asking for there. Nixon Power, at $10,000, they are the company that actually take care of our generators at our stations, so that if we lose power, we want to make sure those kick on so that we don't lose radio service or anything in those areas. And then we always anticipate, or I guess plan for the unexpected, just because if, kind of like with our last wind and storm, we had a antenna that was completely destroyed and we had to repair it, so that ultimately is where that falls in, excuse me. Professional fees at $12,850. You'll see all the little small fees that we pay out to shred it, which we're required to because of the type of documents we're having to destroy. Power DMS, which controls our, hopefully, knock on some wood, here in the next couple of months, our new reaccredited dispatch center. It handles all their files, policies, different stuff like that. Digital Solutions, LadTech, which handles the scheduling, and KLEC and Southern Communications for their small contracts with us. Telephones, $80,000, and as you can see, a large portion of that is AT&T. We also have language line built in there, and there is still some backup phones that are used that we pay Verizon for our 911 center in case we lose phone service with one. We want to make sure we ensure that we can talk to people. Travel and training, DOCJT is that, and PowerPhone is the biggest portions of that. And I guess we come to our part of questions.
Can I ask a very basic question? And why is there redundant costs of heat, power, and of electricity from Public Works and from E911?
For ours, like a lot of our power is for our tower stations. So they are.
So it's not.
It's not for the building.
It's not for the EFC.
This is for the actual every tower that we have.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How many towers do we have?
I think it's 11. I've lost track. 11. I think it's 11, sir.
Lisa, did you have?
Commissioner Unger?
It's good to hear we're hopefully gonna be fully staffed soon. I know that can always be an issue. And when I went and toured, the facility, one thing we discussed was, how quickly you could bring on a 3 and then you lose 2, it's just happening all over. And if it's ever helpful for us to approve you hiring more, putting more through training, if we need to discuss that, I'd say bring it on, let us know.
That'll be something that we'll probably discuss. We were kind of waiting to see how the E911 funding and things took place with the county and the other fees, because we learned something during the last storm that we currently right now the minimum staffing in 24 hours a day is 3 individuals. Well, we learned that we are short probably 1 station. We probably need to staff a minimum of 4. So that is something that we will be coming to, but I wanted to see the final layout of what I truly have to work with when it comes to the county side, and as well as the E911 fees that we've discussed and has been brought up here.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I had a question in regards to the $3,000 for clothing, and then the $3,000 for other supplies and other services.
Yes, the clothing, we require them to wear. They're required to pretty much uniform. They have a polo top and stuff that they're required to wear, and they're to be more professional. I mean, we could cut that out and allow them to wear T-shirts and things like in there.
But it's for uniforms.
But it is for uniform
For them to
stuff.
be together.
For the other services and stuff that you asked about, that is to pay for all the cleaning supplies, everything that
Okay,
we
that's what you were
need
talking
to go throughout the year. Because once again, not anybody can come in there. We're required to maintain a certain way, so we just take care of the cleaning ourselves.
And the other services?
The other services, I think all that, let's see, the other services, oh, I'm sorry. excuse me.
7,500 for
Pardon
that
me. That is all that is linked with Power Phone.
Okay.
There's two different fees. There's a Power Phone fee, I think, of $6,300, and then there's $1,200 that is for the software that integrates to each station.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other? If not, we can move on to police department.
Actually,
Yes,
Mayor, I'm
sir.
sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Will we get an update tonight, City Manager, on what the funding is gonna look like from the county, or where we are in those discussions?
I can provide a written update since this is sort of related to budget or not. We can talk about it, I guess, if it's okay, as a special meeting, or can update you later.
To the extent it's related to strictly to budget, we can talk about it. if
That
you all
was just my
want.
concern, is how are we gonna be impacted with regard to the total numbers, with regard to any discussions that have happened with the county at this point?
At this time, they said they needed some more time.
No, you know, stop playing.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
You know better.
We'll move on to Frankfort Police Department.
All right, so talking about the police department itself, same kind of goals, talking about our comparisons, our personnel costs, and then some requested costs that we have. As you see, budget really jumped last year for some of the things that we needed, and identifying that we have made some cuts of almost $380,000 in our initial request to you all. Each year, once again, I like putting this up here because each year we try to find ways to come in. I can tell you everything that we present you, those numbers you have, if we can find, it's hard to get exact numbers to present to you all right now because usually when they'll only honor that for 30 days, well, we're well outside 30 days for the fiscal year. So those final numbers, whether it be for uniforms, whether it be for equipment, we're gonna find a vendor or somebody that works best with us for the best cost. So we'll always try to find a way to stay under. But for this year, we are budgeting for full staffing of 63 sworn officers and 4 non-sworn. Of those 53 currently, we've got 53 working. We've got 5 that's in academy, and we've got 5 vacant positions. Of our 4 sworn, we're fully staffed with our 2 administrative assistants, our community advocate, and our evidence technician. And we have our 3 part-time, which includes our animal control officer. Current cost right now, we're sitting at a little over $5.6 million. With our vacancies, we're looking at about 175,000. COLA's coming in at 186,462. And currently 87% of our total budget is personnel costs. And I just wanted you all to see where we're at. We are currently sitting for 5 years and under, almost 50% of our officers have 5 years or less on. So we've done a lot on the recruiting trail over the last 5 years in bringing on new officers, and we're gonna have to continue to do that. With, as you see down the side, by July, we'll be short an additional 5 people with retirements and 1 officer leaving for Lexington, so. Getting on to the cost, we're asking for about 100,000 automotive parts. 65,000 is our clothing allowance. For officers, they get $850 a year, but the biggest portion is when we hire someone new, it's over $1,000, almost $1,200 to suit and to prepare them for academy as well as their first days on the street. Motor fuel, we actually cut by $25,000 this year. Last year, if y'all recall, it was a gloom and doom, and it looked like we were going to be paying $4 to $5 a gallon. Luckily, it didn't get to that, so we should be under budget, and by identifying that, we lowered that cost. And our subsidies to include the 3 high schools and their project graduation and the Humane Society. So some of the bigger things you see here, computer services, and I'm sure you all noticed this year we're requesting a little over over 105,000. And that's because last year we had to upgrade our body camera system as well as our in-car system, and we could no longer do the storage in-house. It was required because of the software, not just with Motorola, but some of the other vendors that we checked with. and did some comparisons. So in doing that, Motorola, you all saw that purchase last year, cut us a great deal on the price of cameras and stuff, but it comes with a little bit of a cost of $40,000 a year to store all that footage safely. We increased, last year we were using a separate phone extraction service. It was ineffective for what we needed, and we wasn't getting the phone breaks that we needed for the investigation. So we increased cost and went with a company called Graykey, to which we've already had more success in the few months that we've had it than what we did for a year having the other. Some of the other costs, you'll see a LAD Tech, which built into that is our scheduling, as well as some other software that we do use. Power DMS at $21,000 is for our accreditation documents and services. We're able to do training, set up certificates and stuff through that software, so that we can ensure that we stay in I guess TAC for what we need for accreditation. Other materials, and this is another one that jumped. Ammo has went crazy ridiculous on price. In identifying that, we are currently in the process of converting from, it'll be a step process cost-wise, but we're converting from 40 millimeter to 40 caliber to 9 millimeter rounds and changing that. The evidence room, to ensure that we have enough stuff for proper care and use and storage of evidence, we spend about $23,000 on it. Training and travel. As you see, our tactical response team, they hold national and state certifications through their training, and it comes with a cost with our training with Norris. K9, now here is where this number might drop a little bit, as you all know, and I thank you all for it because y'all granted us permission to apply for a grant. We currently on this fiscal year had 16.5. We were planning on purchasing a second dog before Officer Duncan's untimely retirement and stuff, him an agent. So through some negotiating, when I talked to you about us negotiating, working with vendors very well, we were able to work with a vendor called, or a kennel called Ventosa, and for about $1,000 more, we're going to be getting 2 K9s because of the grant that you all approved and we were successfully received. And we're going to be paying for that probably from asset forfeiture, but we needed to put this on here since you all needed to see that cost. And then our per diems for traveling back and forth and for paying for meals and stuff while officers are at their required training. Equipment, another big jump here. I wish I could stop saying that, but I'm afraid cost of everything that we utilize for equipment is going crazy. Our tactical response team, that is where the big portion of the jump is. They have gas masks that are expiring and need to be replaced, and we're upgrading them a little bit because if we don't, currently when they try to communicate through comms, you can't hear, it's muffled, they can't. So we're incorporating one of the masks that actually have their comms built in so that they have clear. That's one time you don't want any miscommunication or mishearing is when they're on entry. So our range costs at about $24,000, almost 25. Another increase was our taser supplies for all the equipment it takes. You know, each officer's required to recert every year, and that costs money with the 2 different cartridges that they have to utilize. And bike patrol. We are looking at upgrading our bikes. I can tell you over the next few months, you're going to see us throw some overtime money at extra events and extra details, extra patrols with bikes, because that was one of those things that I preached to you all when I sat in front of you all hoping to have this job, and we haven't had the ability to do it. But if we keep waiting for us to be full staff, we're not going to get a chance to. So we're going to do what we need to aid with some of the crime rates that we're looking at. Even though they've been declining the last couple of years, we want to drop them even more and build a better relationship with our community. So, and the last thing I just want to talk to you all about, and I know no one else has, but I just wanted to put in here, and you know, of our request for the 10 cruisers and the outfitting and stuff, and that is simply because as we're looking at it right now, we've got 21 cars that have over 100,000 miles. We've got another 7, I believe, in the 80 to 90 range. So over half of our fleet is sitting to where prior to the recession in 2008, when we were getting 10 cars a year, they would already been replaced. So, and we'll be surplusing 7 vehicles upon any approval for purchases, so.
Commissioner Unger.
I am, of course, big on community policing. I'm excited to hear about upgrading bikes, doing some maybe extra patrol on bikes around the community. I think that's great. It's going to be great. I did, and we spoke about this earlier, I noticed only one community policing advocate is listed. I would love to have a second. I think we would all love to just clone Shelley Hearn and have another Shelley, but if you want to speak to that a little bit, that'd be great.
The big thing with that is I have spoken and definitely have a desire to have a second community policing advocate. I have absolutely. Shelley has been amazing for the department, for our officers, for the community. What we were trying to wait to see before that request was made is identify any grants that might be available to aid us pay for it, but also the bigger thing, we still have our opioid abatement funds that we need to try to decide how we want to spend those. So knowing that that could also go aid in that type of salary and that type of work, I wanted to see how that laid out before I just requested a second individual.
Do we have an idea on the timeline? When we
For
might
the
find out?
opioid abatement, I know we've been back and forth. There's a couple of things. I know you all were invited to the ASAP meeting. I think it's Thursday, I believe. So with that, you're going to hear about the table that Shelley and I had discussed in front of you regarding early identification for youth and how that works out with some of our partners. That comes with a little bit of a cost. So really, I would like to say I will have something for you in the next 2 to 3 months on trying to add someone or where that could be.
Commissioner Waters.
You know, I wouldn't be opposed to another person. However, I think we're really quick to add on other staff rather than looking at the staff that we have. Shelley has done an amazing job. She's doing very hard work. And I think when you look at her salary compared to a state level, she's really below that state level in looking at a competitive pay. I think she has done more than we really thought that she was going to be doing coming in. And I think before we continue to keep saying we want to hire all these positions, we really need to see and make sure our folks in the city are having that that pay that can be across the board. And to me, I think right now Shelley is underpaid. And so before I say that I want to take any money to get another person, maybe grants or whatever, I think we should take care of who's at home right now and who's working their butts off for us. So that's my huge thing in making sure she's
absolutely.
competitive.
Yes,
And I support just seeing everything that she has occurred across the board and added on. I think that that's something we do need to focus on to make sure that we do keep her and we don't wear her out in looking at more places that are a little bit more, aggressive in pay, maybe at the state level, doing sort of the same thing she's doing. So I think we definitely need to keep that
Absolutely,
in
yes,
mind.
ma'am.
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Thompson.
I want to echo what Commissioner Waldridge has said. However, I will also say that perhaps that's a situation where we could be looking at maybe a retired individual who has a master's in social work or something that could be a part-time fill-in. I know last Monday night I found myself after a very long budget meeting needing the assistance of Shelley, who, poor thing, she was sick. It wasn't her fault, but and luckily, just by chance, 2 of your officers walked into the situation I was in. So it would have. I just think that particular position is one that has evolved into one that is very useful in this city, and perhaps we can just find someone that can fill some gaps right now. Because we think it's that important, and I told former Chief Adams, go ahead and budget it, make it happen, do whatever you need to do to make it happen. Let's get Shelley compensated the way Shelley needs to be compensated, but at the same time we need to make sure that she has some backup a little bit too, because I know she feels like she's working 24 hours a day, 365 days a week or a year. I have a couple of just real quick questions. You said that we have 53 sworn officers working right now. 5 at the academy and 5 vacant. First of all, did we just hire, is that the group that just went through to the academy?
The 5 that are in the academy are the group that we just hired.
Okay.
We actually were able to get a couple of them in a couple of months early.
Okay.
So we were able to establish that, but that is that group.
Cool. Do we have other applicants at this point that we're looking at, or?
I can tell you, we've got 5 vacancy. At the last testing we had 3 applicants.
Okay. Of the 53 sworn officers that are working on payroll, how many of those are actually on the street working right now? I think that at one point there were a couple that were.
Let's see, there is probably around, I didn't take this job to be a mathematician, but I think it's around 38 or 39
Okay.
that we have sworn working the street.
Okay, and then as of August the 1st, you said we're gonna lose 5 or 6?
We've got 4 that's set to retire, effective, I guess their first day of the rest of their life will be August 1st. And then I've got 1 that has been accepted into academy in Lexington.
Okay. So is that gonna take our numbers down until we get those 5 from the academy down to like 34 on the streets?
It will. Yeah, we will be doing some creative work and usage of personnel for that time. The big goal for me is to make sure we're doing the retention. We have to really sell ourselves to laterals as well. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those guys that doesn't believe in brand new officers. I know if that was the case, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you all. I'm a firm believer in new, but if we replaced everybody we're short right now with brand new people, then we wouldn't be full staff probably till the end of next year.
That was my next question. Are we working on plans for lateral recruitment and retentions at this point? I know that city manager and you had several discussions about that. Have those progressed at all, or are we looking at some plans?
Yes, they are. I know we meet tomorrow as well. We have some, I believe, some very good ideas on being the recruitment that we need to do. I'm going to do some new things. We're looking at putting up some billboards in some larger cities, because let's face it, some of these officers in Lexington and Louisville are tired out. I mean, they are, and maybe we can offer them something better. So we are going to take new roles with social media. We're getting the officers involved in a lot of the stuff. I've got one young officer, I think he would break his neck trying to get to a recruitment fair if he could, and this is a guy that's been on less than 4 years. So we are putting a lot of the power in the hands with the right leadership of our youth. And I hate saying it like that, they're just young men, but of our younger officers to, they're going to be the ones that help shape this department.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify though, the budget does, we're factoring full.
Yes, sir, they sure do.
On the personnel, right? City manager?
Oh, I just wanted to offer that on May 22nd at the voting session next week, we do have in there any of the requests that you all had in the individual meetings. So one is an additional CPA. We put that in there so you all can vote thumbs up, thumbs down for any of those requests, or restoring different accounts that we cut that when we went through all that with you. So that can be voted on next week.
Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion?
Is there anything with regard to the EOC that is needing to be completed? I know at one time there was some discussions about having to some energy efficiency things and things of that nature. Is that come out of your budget, or would that be out of building and
Buildings.
Yeah,
buildings?
that-
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. And good luck with your call.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Chief, good luck.
Thank you, appreciate you all.
Yeah, like the one.
That we're taking up the 3 million.
Okay, next, fire and EMS.
You know, the general fund, like, this is a one-time thing, it's not gonna be next year, but this is gonna be.
Welcome back.
How are y'all doing tonight?
I was making sure I was understanding.
No.
All right, I've combined both these in PowerPoint, where we do have 2 different line items, 41 and 42 for EMS and fire. And I'm gonna go over both of them in one shot if I can figure out the clicker here. All right, so as you can see in 21, this is on 41 is the EMS side of our department, 3,000,002. 22 we had 3.7. In 23 we were at 4.2, and this year we're looking at a 5,086,035. I'll explain why that big jump here later on in the slide. You'll see that big jump. It's just a shift of personnel in the budgets and the line items. In 42, the fire side, we had 5.6 in 21, 6.2 in 22. Last year we were 6.8, and this year we've actually come down to a 5.9. But again, you're going to see a shift in personnel, which is where this is kind of balanced out. EMS department, our personnel, the personnel cost, as of March 24th, we were at 41 full-time, 10 part-time. Right now, we're at 40 and 9. And current cost, 3.1, built-in overtime is included in this because of where our 24-hour shifts work. We have automatic overtime built into salaries. Shifting paramedic and EMTs from fire, the 42 side to the 41 side is where that 860 was at, which would be that difference you saw in that 5 million in the 41 budget this year. That's where that jump came from, was shifting those personnel over. I got with Alicia on shifting these personnel over. That helps with some of the billing in our interlocal agreement and things like that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Uh-huh.
Is that okay?
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah,
good with
can you just explain built-in overtime to me?
Built-in overtime. So your dad was a firefighter, you know about 24-hour shifts.
Mm-hmm.
So every paycheck the easiest way to explain this is every paycheck for a firefighter, you're either getting 120 hours or you're getting 96 hours. So you automatically have built-in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, you pay a little bit less on the hour. So we just finished a recruit class. As they were going through recruit class, their hourly rate is higher to meet that yearly salary. We adjust their hourly rate back down where the overtime is built into their yearly salary.
Thank you.
So that's where that built-in overtime is.
How does that affect their benefits
It doesn't affect their benefits at all.
or retirement or anything of that nature?
No, it keeps the same yearly salary.
I got you.
So
It
and
doesn't matter if it's considered overtime hours
did-
versus.
no, it did change. We figured that stuff we figure in now. They can get special overtime, and special overtime just increases what they made on their paycheck.
Okay.
So there is special overtime, which would be riding a transport ambulance, working a 48-hour shift because we're low staffed. They get special overtime for that, but this just we budgeted for that as well. But this is that built-in overtime in their salaries.
Mass casualty incidents, something like that.
Thank
that
you.
makes sense.
Anything people come in for extra fires, things like that, that's where that would be extra, additional overtime.
Okay.
So anything in that 120 and 96 range of every 2 weeks, that's built into to this number.
And we're not obligated. We're never obligated with regard to mutual aid of covering costs of another entity that comes in and assists us.
No, we have mutual aid
Hours-wise.
agreements with the surrounding agencies and different things like that.
Extra.
And usually if it's something big like that, there'll be state funding to cover all that and federal funding.
Thank you.
Like I said, that's just, the 860 was what that difference was in 41, where you saw that jump to go to that $5 million range. COLA, 124.1, and that includes the cost of fringe. And that's just in the 41 personnel. 42 is our fire side. Back on March 24th, we were 51 full-time and 1 part-time. Right now, we're sitting at 50, and we're still got that 1 part-time. To explain our part-timers, some of these ride the transport ambulance, and we've also, with the approval of the city manager, I've been able to hire some part-time instructors, which help out and reduce that overtime cost in our paramedic programs. Current cost is the $4,639,241. That's built-in overtime included in that as well. Because, like I said, with the 41 and 42, same staff, same shift. It's just how we classify them in our budget. COLA is 154,367, and that includes the fringe and the fire side. Kind of some highlights. This is kind of what we bring in. Ambulance building in fiscal year 24. We're looking at probably going to bring in 2.1 million. 22 was 1.8, and through March we were at 1.7 when we did these numbers. So that's what we bring in through our ambulance billing. Interlocal agreement is what we have with the county. We average about 600,000 when we bring in with that. Fiscal year 22 was 233. Fiscal year 23 through March was 307. There's still 2 payments that are being they're due right now that they're covering. And I believe Alicia's in talks with that.
Quick question, Chief. But our total cost for our ambulance runs, I know it doesn't cover it all.
No.
Do you have an estimate of the gap?
As far as the gap and how much it covers, I don't have the exact number of what it covers. I do know that we actually collect at a higher rate than a lot of services. We're about that 47% collection rate, which is really good. When there were some changes, I believe it was '08, they made some big changes with healthcare, and we had to raise our numbers for ambulance transports way up in cost to about a $1,300 for an ambulance run. And that was because we no longer bill for disposables and things like that, and Medicare and Medicaid are only going to pay a percentage. So we raised our billing up, that way that percentage would cover the run. We still fall short on that. We don't break even by any means in EMS, and that's not what we're here for. When you start covering disposables and everything that costs, which is one of my other slides, talks about one of our biggest expenditures is supplies. So I can get the numbers for you and see how much the actual difference is.
Just
But-
curious, because I also know we've had an increase from on Medicaid runs that increase revenue. You know, we're participating in the state program that brings
Yes,
in
if
some additional
so
revenue.
we have to increase our pay, which I have a slide on that as well, which I'll go over. We increase our pay to them, which makes them eligible for federal funds, and that's a KRS thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So no, I don't have the exact number on how far we're not breaking even, but I love your hard questions.
So on this, so we cannot increase the amount of our billing on the ambulance runs because of the caps that Medicare, Medicaid.
They're only gonna pay a certain amount. We can increase them in private insurance companies may pay a good portion of it, but then it'll fall back onto the people we transport. It'll fall back on the citizens, anything that they don't cover. So we try to keep it at a reasonable rate because a lot of this stuff falls back.
Finance director to the rescue.
1.313865 roughly.
Fiscal year '22, we were expenditures over revenues that were a little over 1.3 million. Is that what y'all needed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
You're welcome.
So, what'd you ask, Mayor? Did I answer your
Well,
question?
whether we could, how much could we
We
increase
can,
the
but
ambulance?
if you increase that bill, it's gonna fall back on the citizens quite a bit. And that's just, to me, that's a big issue. Right now, we're fairly high and pretty standard across Kentucky and what we build.
Competitive.
It's competitive. And then the interlocal, that is the agreement with the county. Right now, we're at 27%. I believe is what it says, 27 or 28%. I believe it's 27% is what's right now. That's what we bill the county, 27% of the cost. And that's where changing the personnel comes in, because we bill them for 41. Personnel costs are approximately 8 to 9% in both departments, 41 and 42. We are fully staffed right now, and Assistant Chief Carpenter's been doing a great job of watching overtime cost. He runs his reports every Monday, and we find out if we're hiring too many people, if our battalion chiefs aren't following what they're supposed to do. And actually, we are not hiring very much overtime at all. I want to say maybe 2 people over the past week, and that was for paramedic class coverage. So we're doing very good with that. Having our part-timers work Medic 5 is a great way to reduce the rates. And our biggest overtime cost this year, as long as we stay fully staffed, will be just staffing some of the functions that we staff if we don't have the on-duty staff to cover it. As far as Derby, for example, I know the expo, we're going to have units down there for the whole day, and just different things like that, being in the community more. And we actually have a Gator staff just to follow the race, because I know we've had some history in the city of Frankfort with these kind of things, and where we don't have the full-fledged AED program going on right now. We don't want that to happen.
He's got jokes.
But no, right now we are fully staffed. We're actually 3 heavy, where you all let us hire. I want to say October, November was the approval, and we hired the 16. Right now we are 3 heavy. I do have 2 retirements scheduled by the end of the year, and that's going to we should be about even by the end of the year, and as long as we don't get any more resignations, which in public safety, I know the police struggle, we do as well as far as that. We'll see. We average about 9 a year, I believe, but we're just managed to keep them fully staffed right now. So in your numbers you have now, you don't have the decrease in overtime cost, but in the next meeting when you have the budgets, we will have those figured in. I sent those to the city manager as well as Alicia, and I want to say we're going to be overall maybe about 250 less than what we were last year, even being fully staffed on both budgets combined. Some of our biggest expenses, would be, in the EMS side, that's the 41 side, our medical and lab supplies, at 140,000. You're looking at all the stuff we use on the ambulance, all the medications, all the disposables that we're using on that ambulance. They get quite expensive. The Medicaid expense of 80,000 was what you referred to. That's we pay for KRS. We have to pay this. It's actually KRS 205-5601, and it's just something that we have to pay. We get a portion of it back in billing, but that's what we're contracted to pay, and we pay it every year, and it increases a hair every single year. It's based off your run volume. Automotive parts at 50,000. We're going to try to get those reduced. The garage has done a great job at keeping our preventative maintenance up and fixing things that were band-aided in the past. So we spent a little bit more this year, but next year we're hoping to keep that down. Fuel at 65, and equipment costs are about 50,000. And this is going to be protective clothing, radio and emergency lighting, the MDC agreements, which is our mobile data centers, the computers in the ambulances, rescue tool maintenance, and miscellaneous equipment there are all things that constitute that 50,000. Where it says protective clothing on 2 different spots, that 14,000, that gets us about 7 people when you combine it. 28,000 gets us about 7 people on full firefighting PPE. And it's replaced every 10 years, plus when new people get hired on. So that is a constant thing we have to keep in our budget and keep up track on who we're replacing gear on. That we actually have that 28,000 on both 41 and 42, because that gets us about 14 people, and we're replacing probably 8 to 10 sets a year, not including the new hires. On the fire side, the 42 side, you got heat, light, and power. It's funny, I was actually talking to Assistant Chief Carpenter about how can we reduce this. I felt like a dad and wanted to turn off lights every time I walk in the station, and I know you made that comment, but we were actually back there brainstorming because we got a gas bill, and we're like, why is this gas bill so high? It doesn't need to be that warm in there. So
Can I give you one hint? Turn off the air conditioning that's on full blast in a room where nobody is in.
We have talked about all that. We were actually talking about this, and we're looking at maybe digital thermostats we can control, or just putting the old-fashioned lock boxes over all of them, and we're going to control them. That's just something we were talking about back there, because this is something, and you can ask Gina, I complain about this every time I sign the bills. Like, why is the gas bill so high? I sound like my own father. Maintenance and repairs. That is just a high cost on keeping fire trucks on the road. As hard as these things are ran from a dead stop, they break down. We get parts are broken, but the garage is doing a great job of keeping these things going. Hydrant rental with the plant board. We're in a unique situation. We rent our hydrants from the plant board. They actually own the hydrants. It is a different situation, but it's beneficial for us in the fact that we don't have to test them, we don't have to maintain them, none of that stuff. The county, for example, they go out and maintain their hydrants. You got to flow test them every year. You got to maintain them, clean them, keep the weeds away from them. This is something we don't have to do in the city. We rent them from the plant board. Required travel and training, 58,000. A lot of this is not really travel, except for the in-state stuff. The training building and training grounds cost a little bit to maintain. We do a lot of disposables when we're teaching people how to cut through roofs. We got to have actual wood we cut through. There's just a lot of stuff that we end up that are disposables in these budgets that we really need to continue on with training. Fuel, 50,000. Equipment is 100,000. And again, we got protective clothing, SCBA and air packs, and SCBA cylinders. Very expensive items. I do have that grant you all approved that we're going to wait to see if we're going to get approved for that. And that'll add us in some more cylinders as well as air packs. And we actually have another program that might cost a little bit more up front, but we can reduce some of the maintenance we do on these that might help us out, and we'll break even over 2 years and save us a lot of money. Fire hoses, it never fails. Any fire we go on, we rupture 3 of them. Miscellaneous fire equipment's about $20,000. Mini thermal cameras are 72. This is a safety. The mini thermal cameras is a safety thing. We purchased 6 last year, and at the end of this, we should have at least 1 mini thermal imaging camera on every air pack on an apparatus. So every firefighter will have a way to see inside smoke without just relying on field. So that's what that goal is for that. And then the technical rescue equipment right there, it says TRT rescue equipment. That 15,000 right there is for one specific stabilization. It's actually a lighter weight vehicle stabilization that we have now, and it will make us able to less back injuries, less heavy lifting, and a more efficient piece of equipment. That is what that one right there is for. Any questions?
What is our height reach? What is our top out height reach for our
The ladder?
ladder truck?
It's listed at 75 feet, and it's going to depend on the streets and the placements on how far you can get up on that, but 75 feet is what it's listed at. And we do have truck 2 right now, which we are waiting on some parts to make it fully usable again. And
Mhm.
it's a 110 platform,
110 with that one.
110-foot platform.
And that's going to be up and running once we get a few parts.
Well, right now, we're waiting on just 2 of the rear jacks that had to be ordered and put on. The garage puts those on for us.
Okay.
And
I
we'll have
say
to
that.
have that, and we'll have to have it ladder tested to be good to go.
I say that only because I know the trucks are really expensive, and we're going to have
That
to
will
make sure
be-
we
that
have
will be
one
probably
tall
a
if
couple
we
years
have.
Couple years from now, we'll be talking about a ladder truck. I'll be
Okay.
begging you all for a new one, so.
Yeah, we just need to think about that and think about capital budgets, because if we
Yeah.
have that big apartment complex or
Yes,
townhome complex
right
coming
now,
over
truck
by Home
2
Depot.
is an older vehicle right now, but it's not
Mhm.
ran as much, so it should be efficient. We've done all this
Okay.
maintenance to it. We just got new cylinders on it. We just, that are
So
that
it'll
actually
still work
with
for a
raising
few more
things.
years. Okay,
And keeping up with it, it was let go for a little while and catching it up. I
okay.
want to say I put $25,000 in that truck this year,
Oh, wow, okay,
so. But yeah, so that one's
We just need to
110,
be
that one's
prepared.
110 and it's stationed at Home Creek.
okay,
And then the 75's right here.
okay. Thank you.
Anything
Any other
else?
capital expenditures for 2024?
We will
besides
have the,
training?
2024 is the remount and I don't have it in front of me, the remount as well as the stretcher for the new ambulance. That won't be billed until 2025, and that was the 400, closely, it was like right about 400, was the ambulance that we approved in December. But the remount, and we have a mannequin for paramedic training on there that I've requested, and it was around 25. And that's for more realistic training on getting our paramedics a lot more realistic on their trainings for cardiac arrest and medical calls. There's no capital on the fire side right now that we have. That's just EMS.
Anything else?
That's
Thank
it.
you.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, next, emergency management, Ray Kenny. You didn't say it.
No,
For the record,
I
you got
marked them down the
Yeah.
times they got here. They're present, so.
Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening, Commission and Mayor. Got the fiscal year '24 Emergency Management Department, that's City and County Office, proposed budget. First number up there, 726,558. If you remember COVID, we had a lot of run-through money, the CARES money. We had lots and lots of equipment we bought for the fire department, masks, gloves, cleaning of stuff. We just ran it all through emergency management. In the event that we would have had a FEMA emergency, we would have nice and clear. So prior to that, we were in the range of 180,000, 190,000. So 22 was 191, 112. Fiscal year 23 budgeted 225,996, and proposed fiscal year 24 229,390. Worked with City Manager Alicia, and we cleaned up a lot of stuff in our budget categories we planned for, we didn't use, and then we kind of filled those monies out with categories where we were running over quite a bit. So mostly cleaned up on the budget. Biggest issue, and thank you all for your support last month. We went to way back 10, 15 years ago when we had a full-time manager. So we went back to full-time director, and we'll have 2 part-time staff. Personnel budget stayed about the same money-wise, except for the benefits for the pension costs for one-time full employee. Operating expenses, advisory technical, that's a lot of outdoor siren repairs. We have 32 sirens in the county. That money is spent for repair of all those sirens, city and county. 9 in the city, 23 in the county. 2015, 2016, we had a major project where we added 15 new sirens. So a lot of that money for advisory technical is actually for the outdoor siren repair. Run a Ready Frankfort app, and that is for public safety awareness. We can put information on there. It's free. We split the money cost on that with LEPC Group and work that out. Google, we run for the Emergency Operations Center inside the EOC. We run all the computers off that, the Chromebooks and such. And we have other miscellaneous costs there as they're needed. Telephone, a lot of our offices communication. So we have cell phones, wireless remotes, satellite phones. Those are quite expensive, but that takes care of all of our equipment in the command post, EOC and such. Automotive parts, we're running 2 Suburbans and 1 pickup truck, boats for search and rescue, trailers, command bus and such. So again, thanks to the garage for keeping us up and running. Equipment's getting older and it takes a lot to keep it up. Drop a little bit on motor fuel, price per gallon, so a little bit of drop there. Project we've been working on the last year or so, 2015. Sirens had maintenance, marine batteries in them. The maintenance is due on those. We've been replacing those, 4 batteries per site. And it runs about $500 when the technicians come in, when we buy the batteries and they install them per site. Required travel and training, that's gone up. By law, we have to attend the Emergency Management Conference in September. We added in the membership for the BERT, Bluegrass Emergency Response Team. We entered into that group last year, and we've got a cost of $27.50 for that. That gives an opportunity for our city and county folks to attend training. They've got a lot of resources in the Central Kentucky region, mutual aid for the different groups, and we'll be working with that group, hopefully very strong for attending trainings. Miscellaneous, $4,000. Large part of our office is search and rescue, so anything we need, binoculars and tape and just all kind of different things, miscellaneous items that whatever might happen running an operation scene. Computer hardware, software, $3,500. Been in the building since 2008. Our plasma TVs keep working, and we know they're going to expire, so we're budgeting for replacement of those, as well as Chromebooks, laptop computers. Thanks to IT, we get a pretty good rate on all of our stuff, so thanks to Bobby and the guys. Pretty simple. Any questions? Good.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, Alicia.
Happy to say this is the final presentation too. Yay! Yay, yes, okay. So I'm here to talk about all of the capital projects and capital asset requests. So what you'll see in this presentation is a list of the requests that were provided to you during your individual budget meetings, and that was a little over 3.8 million. And then Laura and I, City Manager Hegg and I, went back and looked at those and tried to prioritize, and you'll see the comparisons side by side of what was originally proposed versus what we now recommend. So we shaved around $1 million off of that project list. Now, obviously, it's totally up to you. You can add things back. You can remove more things. You can switch things out, items out. Totally up to the BOC. But I think that during your individual meetings, you asked and we promised a shaved down version of that list. But once again, on I think the 22nd, next week's meeting, you'll be able to do a vote up or down on what you might want to keep and eliminate or defer, things of that nature. So And just remember, my apologies, that's a little hard to read. Anything that we do with these things will come out of the general fund. It would be, because there's no grant, I mean, any kind of grant amount's already been excluded. So anything I talked to you about this evening, whether it's the total 3.8 million, 2.8 million, some amount in between or lower, that will all be general fund transfers out. That will go into the capital improvements fund to fund these things. Okay, so I took the liberty of going on ahead and putting the things in that I don't necessarily think that there's a lot of wiggle room with. So the vehicles that we're currently financing, obviously we will continue to finance those. Those are through Enterprise Fleet. And that's $120,960 over the year. We have a power lift that Chief Monroe mentioned, and you've already approved that as well. And it's not going to be coming in until fiscal year 24, so we've included it in the budget for fiscal year 24. We're into phase 3 of irrigation and pump house repairs at the golf course. Unfortunately, irrigation system out there was wasting a lot of water, and so we're into phase 3, and we would like to recommend the $25,000 for that one. And then we've got those 3 grants that you've already approved, and my apologies for not remembering the exact names of the grants. I probably have that in a spreadsheet somewhere, but city manager, do you want to?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the For Sales Road is the Connecting Communities grant to make a safer, safe passage to cross that busy street. We got a planning grant for that. Shinkle Road is the very long-awaited trail along Shinkle Lane. We were turned down once or twice, and we finally had a winning grant application this time.
Third time's charm.
And then, yes. And then East Frankfort Park, that's the Land and Water Fund that the governor recently recognized us for. We got $150,000, but we have to do a match of $350,000.
Yes, and I'm a numbers person. I don't remember names. I could probably remember all of your social security numbers if you gave them to me. I don't recommend you do that, but I can't remember words very well. So, but the last 3 are the matching parts that the city has to put in. So I wanted to go on ahead and put those in first to let you see those, because like I said, I don't know that there's a ton of wiggle room on any of those, obviously. Okay, the next.
No, it's fine. I'll ask.
Did you?
No,
Okay.
it's fine.
So the next group of items are the vehicles that the departments are all needing, and I tried to put in as much information as I could on what we might be replacing. And also whether it was electric or gas. I know that's a big push to try to go to electric. So the garage electric truck, sanitation electric truck, Cove Springs is a gas vehicle, it's a pickup truck, finance and IT, small SUVs similar to the Chevy Bolts you're seeing. Fire needs a large SUV, and that would be a gas vehicle. And then planning needs vehicles, and we quoted hybrids for those vehicles. And there's a possibility that planning might not need 2 vehicles. They may only need 1, but we can come back with you on that. And if you'll see that, look at how old a lot of these vehicles are. We're driving vehicles. I mean, Cove Springs Parks vehicle's a 1993 vehicle. So obviously it shaved from $124,000 down to $86,000 for the year. And those amounts that are monthly costs were what you were presented, but I went on ahead and obviously multiplied by 12, gave you the annual cost. And then obviously depending on how quickly we can get those in, budget might not be that full amount, but we'll go ahead and budget for 12 months as though we're expecting to get those for 12 months. And then there were a few that we recommended not to purchase or finance, and they were a gas truck, a couple of gas trucks, and then a planning pickup truck. Does anybody have any questions on the vehicles? We do have a very aging fleet, I think, and we'll talk about the police vehicles next. Chief Bowman indicated that, and it's not unfortunately not just in the police department, it's all across the city. We did manage to get 5 new vehicles through Enterprise. I think 2 in fire, 2 in parks, and 1 in public works. And that's that group that were on the slide before.
Commissioner?
Yeah.
I saw the mayor look over at me while this was going down. I don't know if he was having the same thought I was or not. That seems really high for a monthly cost on a vehicle. Am I incorrect on that? I mean, I bought a couple cars lately. I don't know, all of them. I mean, $1,100 for a pickup truck per month. I mean, that doesn't seem like. I mean, are we paying like a? Is that a loan that we're paying on? Is it a lease we're paying on? What is it
Well,
that cost?
it's that equity lease. I know that we can lease to own, and I can't remember what the interest rate was, but I want to say it was right around 6.5% or so. But you are talking about fairly, substantial priced vehicles too.
Sure. I mean, I see that.
I mean, I'm happy to go back and do some more research, but
No. I just wondered if this is. I didn't know the difference between going out and buying a new vehicle as a consumer and looking at a pickup truck or a crew cab that an $1,100 payment. I mean that.
Well, Commissioner Thompson, I received this information from our contact person with Enterprise, which is Byron Roberts over in sanitation. And I think the thought last year when we entered into the Enterprise Fleet Management agreement was to be able to get more vehicles. If you start trying to just buy vehicles outright, you're not going to be able to get that many vehicles. So we were trying to spread the cost out and be able to get more vehicles versus 1 or 2. We might be able to get 5 or 6,
Sure.
and we're paying that monthly cost.
I guess my question is, would we be? Is there another? And I don't know, Madam City Manager. Is there another lending mechanism we can use as just like we did with bonding, that we can use our own money, but we're not necessarily have a high interest, or not even a high interest rate, but paying it off over time. I'm just wondering because I'm sure that if anybody's watching this, they're going, holy cow, $1,200 for a pickup truck. And I understand these are substantial vehicles. I'm not saying it's the same as a typical small sedan or anything, but it just seems those numbers seem high, and I'm wondering if there's any mechanism by which we can utilize that to lower those amounts and be able to buy more. I want to buy more cars.
Right, we've checked out, so we've had, Byron has found some other, Magnolia Bank, which helped us, was a cheaper way to finance, a side loader, an automatic side loader. We've checked out others have come in higher. And so in comparison, and we were looking at this for police too, like how do we try to finance, these were the best rates that we found.
Are these 3-year leases?
No, I think they're 5.
They're 5.
But, yeah. Well, but you also have to remember, Commissioner Thompson, if you'll look at the small SUVs
Yes.
and that hybrid, those are more like what a consumer would pay, $500 to $600. The other ones you're referring to are these big, huge trucks like F-250s and probably
35.
F-350s. I don't know all the ins and outs of all of that, and got big engines in them and have to have a big bed for them, and they're going to have toolboxes and things. So it just costs more. I hate to say it, but it just costs more. But I'm happy to, go back and talk to our enterprise representative again and
you're
see
the
if.
numbers. I was just. I mean,
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of sticker shock there. And once again, if this is something that you guys don't feel comfortable with, you can eliminate any of these that you might want off of the recommended list.
Well,
So.
I think that's my problem. Is I don't want to eliminate any of them. I want to add more.
We would love to be.
10
Yeah,
of them,
we
so,
would love to be able to do that. Yeah, it's just expensive as anybody that's
any
shopping
lenders
for
out there that want
a
to help
vehicle.
us.
Yeah.
Contact
One thing
City
also
Manager.
about Enterprise is that, and what has happened in other cities, we may pay for this for a year. and then there's such a high demand for whatever vehicle that somebody else wants, that we've sold it back
Yeah.
to them, and
That's an
actually,
option.
sell it back, and you actually make some money off of it that they give you, because there's such high demand for
And there's always that possibility too, and I think this happened with the fiscal year 23 amounts. They quote us those costs, and they typically come in a little bit lower than that, so the monthly cost as well. So those costs might hopefully be a little bit lower than what you're seeing. These are just the quotes that Byron got and passed on to me.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So in regards, I mean, I know we're all looking at electric and we're all trying to, solar and all of these things, given how many are electric and some of these larger trucks, they're still creating and trying to keep the electric capacity for them to do. What is the increase from switching all of these vehicles to electric versus keeping them regular, just maybe this time and then going later, since we're trying to help this deficit that we have? And then on top of that, what are the numbers? What do you think of the increase for using electricity is going to be to charge them? And then what is the cost of getting each place a charging station for them to do? So I'm looking at deficit. And, I understand that we did have another commissioner who's really pushing electric. I think we all do in some way, shape, or form, but we are in a deficit. So is it more reasonable for us to stay the same path that we're going right now for this time, and then say we're going to start doing this maybe next year or after 2024 to start budgeting more money for electric? Because I don't even think that we are prepared as a city to have charging stations in all of these locations right now for them to even charge. And can we get a faster truck or pickup truck, sanitation truck? Well, we need that yesterday. So, how fast can we get that? And it says electric. I would love to have electric, by all means. I've seen them. I think they're amazing. But if I can get Katie a truck faster that may just be gas, we can worry about electric truck later, and if it saves us money.
So as far as the electric, I think I can answer parts of your question, or attempt to. So on the stations for electric, I don't know what
I can jump
cost
in,
might be,
yeah.
but Laura may, and I do know
And
that
Katie's.
and Katie's coming, and I do know that Byron was looking at doing something that would be less expensive for the electric versus, I think there were some things that were gonna be like
Charging system, yeah.
20-some $1,000s, but I don't think we were looking at that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we can, we talked about this morning, we can get an adapter for $800 and plug them directly into a regular outlet. So that would be an option for most of these. If you get the basic extended time charger that takes overnight to charge, they're about, I can't remember, 15 to 20,000 a piece. So we want to start out with this, low cost option as we can, and hope that works for us. And then of course if we find that we need to invest some more money, of course we will, and we will have to as we get more and more electric vehicles. But with the few starting out, I think we can do the adapters pretty cheap and do it that way.
And there's someone safe enough for that adapter to be plugged in for the voltage that would be needed to take care of a truck and not cause any electrical issues at whatever facility you're planning on plugging these in?
Yeah, we would obviously want to make sure that we have an electrical inspection and confirm that, but we think that we would have that capacity, and we'd want to do this at Rouse Avenue and at Bald Knob and here at City Hall.
And just speaking from experience, that $400 or $500, you put in a 220 amp and plug it in, and it charges it up overnight. I mean, we don't need a 15 or 20,000
Right.
No, that's not where we're at.
charger.
Yeah,
but
I
if
think
it
we
gets
wanna-
thrown out there, that's what people hear. It's not anything like that at all. It's just you plug it into the wall like you would any other.
Yeah.
Unless these trucks are something I don't own an electric truck, so I don't know. But
Yeah, I
that's
think
just something I don't know about these that are.
it's comparable to what you're referring to, up to Like, once you get to a dump truck, obviously you
Correct.
need something different, but,
It's different than a little
Yeah.
Tesla. It's different than a
That
little
would be
Tesla.
the- yeah, and that would
or a
be-
bus, or a,
But-
something, you'd need something different. But these, yeah, you plug them in, they're pretty cost effective.
And does Enterprise do an analysis there of the maintenance versus, and fuel savings versus the?
I have never asked that, sir, but I'm happy to reach out to them tomorrow
That's a
to
big
see.
part, that's
Well,
it.
and if you'll notice, I mean, I know this doesn't exactly answer Commissioner Waldridge's other question, but, so the difference between basically it's the same truck, the electric truck, the garage, for instance, versus a gas truck, it's about $150 a month. So are we spending more than $150 a month in gas
Correct.
to cover that? So, and I can't unfortunately answer that question off the top of my head, but we could try to, and maybe Katie might know what we're, incurring in costs monthly for gas.
For gas versus what we would be charged at Frankfort Plant Board for electric if we don't use solar.
Correct. I just know that or my apologies if I misunderstood, I thought this was something that the commission wanted us to focus on, which was getting some electric vehicles into the city. Now, once again, obviously, if you want to go with the gas vehicles, we can build that into the budget versus those electric. But I do think, if I may, the two vehicles that finance and IT would like to have would be prime candidates for the electric vehicles if we wanted to start somewhere. And then we could go back to the gas vehicles for those larger work trucks that would be over with, well, Parks is already gas, but the other two, sanitation and the garage. So just something to consider. And then, of course, with planning, that hybrid, I think was a small SUV as well. And that might be a good option too. We just threw out a bunch of different options and then I'll obviously recommend, based on what we were hearing from you guys, what you would like to see
We wanna
happen
see
with
the-
the city,
We
so.
want to see the comparison of the cost too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Okay.
understand that we want it, and I want to make myself clear. It's not that I'm saying I don't want electric.
Oh,
I think
I know,
all
I
of us
know.
agreed at one
Yeah.
time, we want electric, and it was pushed by another city commissioner at that time. And I think we all agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
My job right now is to cut this budget wherever I can, so there can be a COLA for staff. And so there can be money for other things right now. And if I can cut some of these down by getting a gas truck and it's gonna save us in the long run, then I wanna do that. And
Okay.
then we can say 2025 and beyond, we're gonna start looking at electric. We still have a deficit. So these vehicles, there are a lot of vehicles, and I don't want the community to think they're getting cut services and everything like that, and we're just sitting here buying vehicles and not looking at those two costs.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. So if it's gonna be a huge cost where we can save, then I think we should look into it.
Okay,
If
I
not,
will
and it's
try to get
$150, I mean, it's $150, then
Yeah.
that's not a huge thing. But when you add that up on what we're gonna do, like a plug-in adapter versus a charging station, where all of these are located and all they are gonna have their own little areas, does the adapter work? And then when you're looking at gas versus electric, that's the numbers I'm looking
Yeah.
at. It may make it a little bit harder, and I apologize, but we're just trying to squeeze
No,
right
that's
now
okay.
as much as we can out of this orange
Well,
that we've
Commissioner
got.
May had a question.
Yeah, so.
It's kind of been talked about a little bit. I was gonna say initially to the point, yeah, we haven't even factored in the operating cost of this conversation. And so if you want to really fix, plug the hole, plug the bleeding, if you will, you have to factor in your operating costs annually as well. You go down to police 10 cruisers, 700,000, but $400,000 if half of requested cars are hybrid or electric. It's $100,000 more in a department that's spending $250,000 in gas. So I think when we start to really look at the long term here, it gets there. And I don't want to, we need to get back to the point of the budget there. But also my question with purchasing vehicles in regards to the budget, with the IRA, does the city qualify for all of the federal credits that are coming back? When you purchase brand new, you get $7,500 back, if you qualify for the purchases. So
I'd
we
have
have to
to-
make sure, and we'll discuss this with NREL, which is why we hired them to answer these questions and show us every way in which we can get the maximum amount. So, yeah, to me, it makes sense to before, I agree. We need to know what is the cost of it and what's the savings in the long run.
Well, I mean, what I've been told by by people who own electric vehicles is that once you buy one, there's not a ton of
There's savings.
any kind of cost to them to keep,
Except when
them running.
Except when they break.
Yeah.
then you
Well,
have to
and
buy
that's
you have to buy
true,
new
but
ones.
the, you know, that'd be, could
What you
be,
do with the gas
that
car,
could
too,
be
when
the
the
same
gas
with
car
the gas
breaks.
vehicle.
Right.
Yeah, but-
And then also, I've been told that, or I think in the garage's budget, they are gonna have someone be trained to work on electric vehicles as well,
Okay.
so.
I think
Yeah.
I think there's a
That's a smart
big
decision.
difference though in ongoing costs with regard to electric and gas vehicles that it goes beyond savings because two factors. One, if you have a power cell or power source problem, you're looking at the cost of an actual gas vehicle to replace it, as opposed to a gas vehicle. If you have an alternator that goes out or something of that nature, significant difference. And then the end result of an electric vehicle right now is there is nowhere to break down those batteries that are used. They're essentially the same size as the chassis of the vehicle. So we have rare earth minerals that are used in those particular vehicles that do not break down, and there is no place to put them. So there's a cost in disposing of that as well. So, again, we may save a ton of money on the front end, but one of those breaks, and it was a bad investment. And I think many communities are finding that out now in year 2 or 3 of having these vehicles, and that's a concern of mine.
Well, and just if it makes it any better, so all of these would be through Enterprise Fleet Management, and as Laura said, we can, as we want to get rid of them, or as other people want to purchase, then we can exchange out and do that type of thing. So these would not be ones that we're gonna just go out and finance on our own. They'll be through Enterprise Fleet Management, and so we would be able to, if we got into the first year or after the first year and thought this just really isn't for us,
Sure.
then we just could get rid of them. And I think if I understood Commissioner May's comment earlier about the police vehicles, we've talked extensively with the police department about their vehicles, and I don't want to put words in Chief Bowman's
He's
mouth
fine with it.
here,
He's fine with it.
but I think they would be open to hybrid, but I do not think that they are interested in electric.
Right.
I think that's
Okay, just to throw that out there, Commissioner May, to let you know, if I understood what your point you were trying to make, maybe I misunderstood, but that was,
A little bit, yeah.
okay.
But I feel like it's definitely a conversation. I feel like we're kind of getting off track.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to,
Conversation.
yeah, there's a lot of questions
Yeah.
and comments coming, I just wanna
Like
make
the
sure.
next meeting, we can debate whether or not we want
Yeah.
to
Right, well, the
keep it in
budget,
there or not.
from a budget standpoint.
From a
right,
budget
so
standpoint. is the
My
point, yeah.
question is, so why, if we are leasing these, why aren't we I mean, I know it's a capital asset, but if we're leasing them, why aren't we putting this into the operating budget of the various departments?
Well, so for 2 reasons, it's good to keep it separate because sometimes leases can get, not necessarily probably this cost, but department heads are putting their budgets together, and it's easier for me to budget for these if we just move them over into capital improvements and do it that way. It's just a budgeting mechanism. And I had a second comment on that, Mayor, and it went right out my head. My apologies. I'll probably remember it, my second reason for that.
It works for you though.
Yeah. I personally think it's easier to do it this way. Oh, I know what it was, sorry. It's because they're equity leases and the way accounting standards work, we have to treat these as though they're assets to us and a corresponding liability. And it just becomes easier to track them this way. I had another thought, sorry. But that's it. So, and I will try my best. I'll reach out first thing in the morning to Enterprise and ask them if they have some kind of a report that shows cost savings. Is that what you guys are requesting me to
Yes,
do,
ma'am.
an electric versus
Yes, ma'am.
gas? Okay, and just been very busy with the budget. It's
Oh,
just
sure.
hard to get all of the work done, so that's
Are we
needed.
locked in with I'm just asking from a,
We do have a contract with them.
with,
Yeah,
with Enterprise.
Enterprise,
And
yeah.
so is it an exclusivity contract that we, okay,
I don't think it is.
No.
No.
okay.
We
all right.
bought from other, like
Mm.
Magnolia Bank.
And I,
We
right,
Yeah.
bought directly from the state, on the state contract, so
I think Frankfort
it's
Board was
just
on there with
another,
that.
it's another tool.
Right.
Thank you.
Is that it? I'm sorry wasn't able to answer all the questions. My apologies for
And it
that.
helps get us back on track when we're supposed to be switching out vehicles versus the
Right.
issue of all of them coming right now at once. And Enterprise helps keeps us on track for that.
Yeah.
And the maintenance fees.
And they'll pick you up.
Sorry.
Couldn't let that go.
Okay, so here's a few more, if you can believe it, vehicles. So sanitation's in need of an automated side loader, $369,000. Their oldest vehicle is a 2012. Their newest vehicle's a 2022. I think we just bought one in fiscal year 21 or 22. And they typically have 5 or 6 in use. They have 8 total. So we would be getting rid of one and bringing in a new one. And if I thought from the responses last week or the comments last week and this next one too, the flatbed truck, I think that when we discussed the sanitation services, the Public Works Director brought up needing some equipment, and that flatbed truck was one of those because they're getting behind on the cart deliveries, and that would be for this, and that's actually replacing a 23-year-old truck, that sanitation 1-ton flatbed truck. And then the police cruisers, of course, Chief Bowman has asked for 10 vehicles, and that would be around $700,000 for 10 gas vehicles. And as I said, they're open to hybrid. They're not really fond of going electric, but hybrid would definitely be an option.
But the
And that-
electric is not on the state contract, so that's
And
probably.
yes, and that, thank you, Laura. She remembers things I don't and vice versa, so
We're a
thank
good
goodness,
team.
yeah. So $800,000 if it was hybrid, we, figured it'd be a little bit more. Hybrids typically run a little bit more. And as Chief Bowman said, he's got 23 cars with 90,000 miles or more and 21 cars that are 8 years or older. They obviously need vehicles. Unfortunately, we're trying to shave some of this off, and as I said, this is just a recommendation. It would be around $400,000 to purchase 5 of those if they're hybrid. We would recommend getting 5 police cruisers. I think they were going to surplus 7, so that'd be a really good start toward what they need. I think they actually just got the 4 that they had ordered a year ago. It's taking so long to get these vehicles that I know that Assistant Chief Napier told me that as soon as he knows that you've approved whatever number you've approved for the police department, he's going to go right on out and start ordering those because it's taken a really long time to get them. Did anybody have any questions on those? Yes, ma'am.
So in regards to the 7 vehicles from the police, I'm assuming those are all 90K over miles.
Yeah, oh yeah, they would be their oldest.
The oldest ones, I don't know
surplus
what
vehicle.
mileage that looks like on the oldest, but could those be given to the planning area? And then take off those vehicles for them to use them for a little bit until we can budget those?
Well, I mean, we do actually, I'm sorry if I make sure I understand. You're talking about one department giving another department a vehicle to use. We actually already do that. We do that.
All right, but I'm saying on this budget. I understand they may already do that, but I'm just saying, is that something we can use for this
I
budget?
know that there's 7 that are surplus, and I don't know if any of them are
Okay.
functioning. Maybe Chief Bowman, do you know the 7 vehicles you'd like to surplus, or you had planned on surplus, and like what kind of condition they're in?
There's a couple I wouldn't give from Horace Demi. One of them has a blown engine. It was gonna cost a lot more to replace the engine, and so then what it would be to get rid of it. There's another I wouldn't. I mean, for temporary uses that you're saying to relieve some budget, I would say 3 or 4 of them would be probably useful. We would look over them head to tail and make sure that we're not just handing somebody else our headache, so.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. It saves us a little bit to where we could
Yeah.
look at 2025.
And then the last several items, so the garage is requesting another vehicle lift, and that's actually, would allow them the ability to work on larger pieces of equipment, I assume, like the fire department and the ambulance service, equipment, and that's approximately $77,000. ADA ramp for the aquatic center coming in at $15,000. We have, the golf course requested several pieces of equipment, and I asked them to provide a wish list, so we went with the top two. As you can see, that would be financed, and they would be replacing an 06 piece of equipment and a 1999 piece of equipment. We have a finance renovation. I know in each individual budget discussion, I told you that finance's carpet is probably 30 years old. I think it predates the deputy finance director, who's been here 24 years. And the all of the desk and the particle, the board, the walls, that type of thing. We'd like to do a small finance renovation and get that looking better and make it a little more professional looking and give my folks a little more privacy when they need it. And so we've got a rough estimate of around $40,000. We've also got the fire chief's. That was what he was referring to earlier, the fire advanced trainer and disposable. That's $25,000. It's needed for their in-house training. You might have questions about this next one, and I'm glad that the public works director is in here. So we have a lot of sidewalk work that's needed around the McClure building, and the estimate on that is around $800,000. And then stormwater projects, she also mentioned $166,000 transferring in from the general fund into stormwater, and then this one below is a new one. So if you'll recall, I think in each of your individual budget meetings, I told you that I was working with someone to try to get an estimate on being able to do business applications online and to pay online, to make us more business friendly. People don't have to come downtown to bring in or mail in a business application. So we've worked with a software developer on that, and that price, one-time price, would be a little over $31,000, and that's an actual cost. I have the estimate from him already. So that's completely new. I put it last. I wanted you to know, and I did label it as new because you'd been told about it but hadn't had a cost yet. And then the other things that we're recommending to defer, I think we spoke about some of these, the roofs for the Bridge Street building in Ward Oats, the Bridge Street HVAC, Dolly Graham, zero-turn electric mower for parks, the police's range building, and then I know Laura mentioned it, but actually she probably forgot, and Katie mentioned it, but the citywide asset management plan, Katie mentioned that in her budget presentation, and we were going to recommend to defer that, but obviously if that's important, we can put it back on. But that's everything that was requested. What got shaved down, it went from a little over 3.8 million down to a little over 2.8 million. And once again, my apologies for not having some good answers on the cost between electric and gas, but I will try my best to get that to you as quickly as I can.
Commissioner Thompson.
Does the $800,000 at the McClure building, where we are filling in the concrete and everything, it sounds like, does that cover the whole cost of the mitigation that would be needed there, or are we band-aiding what needs to be done?
Yeah, that should be a final permanent fix. I don't know, honestly, I don't know how much we've talked about this project, but the supports under the sidewalk have deteriorated to the point that they need to be replaced. The cost of replacing them was actually much higher than $800,000. So the option that we propose is filling it in, building a wall and backfilling the space under the sidewalk with a flowable concrete. There is one area, kind of a utility space where utilities go in, that would need to remain open and have repairs made to the structure, but
Has there already been a
Yes.
study on this or an engineering study?
yes, we had a structural engineer do a design with some options and alternatives and cost estimates. And we're at the point now where they're finalizing the specifications and we're ready to go out to bid, and just crossing our fingers that this isn't a full 800,000, but that's kind of what the engineer's estimate is, so.
Thank you. I
Just to
appreciate
fill it in, just to fill it in.
Yes, to fill in and replace the sidewalk and to waterproof everything.
Gotcha.
To make sure that the water doesn't get into the building structure in the future.
Okay.
And there's a chance it's more,
That knows the guy.
There is a chance that there's more,
maybe less.
but that's the, like I say, ballpark engineer's estimate at this point.
It's a major capital expenditure
It
for
is.
downtown.
For-
Or something underneath the ground.
That's
Yes.
concrete. That's concrete.
Over 10 police cruisers.
Right.
You really, that's
Exactly.
what we're talking about.
Yeah,
here.
It
That's
is.
what-
unfortunately.
But
You
if
know,
it,
and-
if it falls, we're talking
Right,
about a lot more than
that-
10 police
it-
cruisers. we're
Exactly,
paying for.
exactly. I know.
And how did we get replaced?
It's a
I
big,
guess?
big chunk of that budget though. Any other questions?
70 years.
Miscommunication and contracts and everything else. So.
Thank you, Alicia. Anybody else? We appreciate it.
If you have any questions at all, I'm happy to help in any way I can. I'll research and get the answer, and just let me know. On any of the budget, actually, I'm happy to help. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm sorry, I have something.
Is it related to
Yeah, it's
this
budget.
agenda?
Yeah, I mean, they're done doing, but if we had any questions for each other before the next meeting, we should do that because I don't need emails back and forth. I was going back to the suggestion I made about the police vehicles and seeing that there may be 3 or 4 vehicles that could possibly be from the police where we could maybe get them switched over to a couple. And I think if you guys over the next few days before our next meeting could look at the budget and refer to maybe the finance small SUV, which is 7,640. The planning pickup, which is 12,317. That's budget that maybe we could drop down a little bit and look at those for the 2025 budget. So just keep that in mind, look at some of those numbers going into that, to where we maybe could be able to pull that down a little bit more. I know that that area is done, but, you know, right now we're pushing and pulling everything, and I think we just need to focus on numbers and making sure we can cut where we are and where we need to be. So that may be somewhere to start as well. So if you could take that into consideration. After Dusty gets back with us on if they're drivable. That was mine. I asked all mine as we went. Lisa.
Commissioner had a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, Commissioner May. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are now adjourned.
Kyle.